In Module 5, we're going to talk about three-dimensional figures and also triangles. So we're going to start off with our three-dimensional figures, and we're going to review, before we get into them, area and perimeter. So just kind of refresh, area is the amount that can fit inside a figure. And different shapes have different formulas for calculating area, which we are going to go over here in a second. And then perimeter is the amount that can fit around a figure. And again, different shapes have different formulas for calculating perimeter. We also are going to talk about composite figures, which is combining two or more figures into one shape. So that means you could combine a triangle and a rectangle, maybe two rectangles, a rectangle and a square, just any combination of two or more figures into one shape. So let's go ahead and review some formulas for some very common figures we're going to be looking at. So the first is a rectangle, or just in general, any parallelogram. So the area is going to be length times width. So whatever your length is times your width, your perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Because in a rectangle or a parallelogram, your opposite sides are the same length. So you have 2 sides that are the length and 2 sides that are the width. In a square, the area is just the side squared, because a square has all 4 congruent sides. So if you kind of think of it in terms of a rectangle, the length and the width are the same, so it's just one side squared. The perimeter is then 4 times whatever that side length is, because again, all 4 sides are the same. So when you add 4 sides to the same together, it's just taking one side and multiplying by 4. Next, we're going to talk about a triangle. So the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. And when we talk about height here, we are talking about the perpendicular height. So that's the height going straight up and down inside the triangle. The perimeter, so a triangle doesn't really have a specific formula for perimeter. You just add all sides. Because, and we're going to talk about more about triangles in a later section, but there are different types of triangles where they could all have the same side lengths. 2 of them could have the same side lengths, none of them could. So there's really no one formula we use for the perimeter of a triangle. Next we have a trapezoid. So if you don't remember what a trapezoid looks like, draw a picture here. So that's a trapezoid, sorry. You have a pair of parallel sides, and then the other 2 sides connect them at an angle. So the area of a trapezoid is very, very similar to the area of a triangle. You're going to have 1/2, and then you're going to add your 2 bases and then multiply by your height. So your bases are the 2 parallel sides, and then the height, just like with a triangle, is the height that goes straight up and down in the trapezoid. And then for the perimeter of a trapezoid, again, no real specific formula. You just add all sides. And then the last figure is a circle, which we just talked about in Module 4. So just to review, area of a triangle is pi r squared, and the circumference is either 2 pi r or pi times the diameter. Both of those are the same formula. And for a circle, remember, circumference is just another way to say perimeter. So when we talk about applications of area and perimeter, farmers, construction workers, architects, landscapers, those are just a few occupations that use area and perimeter in their daily lives. So what we're going to be talking about for three-dimensional figures is going to be very applicable to a lot of occupations and just real life experiences that you may have. So let's do a couple examples. So a homeowner is planting a garden where they will plant strawberries. They want to fence in the garden to keep it safe from animals and need to know the perimeter. They also need to know how much fencing to purchase and the total cost. The fencing you plan to purchase is 2 feet long and costs $5.98 each. How much fencing do you need and what is the cost? So this is a very common type of problem that homeowners have, is that they are planning something, they need to figure out how much material they need and the cost. So first we want to find our perimeter. So this is kind of an example of a composite figure. I have 2 rectangles. So I'm looking at my perimeter, which means I only care about the sides of the garden that are exposed. So I have 4 of my sides, but I am missing one of my sides, and that's this side right here, which I can find because I know the entire side is 18. I know the portion from my top rectangle is 9, so this also has to be 9 feet. So I get the entire side. So for my perimeter, we're going to do 15 plus 9 plus 9 plus 24 plus 18. And when we add all of those together, we're going to get 75 feet. So it is important that you remember your units for perimeter, which is just your regular units. Now that I know the amount of fencing they need, I can figure how many feet they need to cover in fencing. I can figure out how much fencing. So each piece of fencing they want to purchase is 2 feet long. So to figure out how much they need, I'm going to do 75 divided by 2, which is going to give us 37.5. So they need 37.5 pieces of fencing, but you can't really purchase half a piece of fencing, so you have to round up here always. So they need 38 pieces of fence. Because you want to make sure you have enough to cover the entire perimeter. It is okay to have extra, you just don't want to be short. So now that we know how many pieces of fence they need, we can now figure out the cost. So for the cost, it's the number of pieces of fence times how much they each cost, which is $5.98. Which is going to be $277.24. Last example is a farmer is deciding how much corn to order for their field. Corn seed costs $40 to $70 per acre, and we want to determine how many acres the farmer has and then the cost of corn if they pay $40. And then what if they were to pay $70? And just to let you know, 1 acre is 4,840 yards. So in our picture, the farmer has a field that is 80 yards by 60 yards. So we're going to find the area of our rectangle. So we're going to do 80 times 60, which is going to give us 4,800 yards squared. So that's how much area they have. So now we need to convert this area in square yards to acres because our price is based on acres. So to figure out how many acres they have, you take the amount of yards they have, 4,800, and divide by the number of square yards in an acre, which is 4,840. So they don't quite have an acre of corn, which is fine. It's going to be 0.9917 acres. Okay. Now to figure out the cost, we take if they were paying $40, we take the 0.9917 and we multiply by 40. And we're going to get $39.67. And if they were to pay $70, we take it and multiply it by 70. And we get $69.42. Which makes sense because if they're just barely short an acre, it makes sense that the price would be pretty much the cost for a single acre. So let me know if you have any questions about area and perimeter, composite figures, or any of the formulas we discussed.